living legend. Boy, it's an honor to bring this gentleman up. It's an honor to bring this gentleman up. Now, many of you know that Abraham had two sons, Isaac and Ishmael. And you know, when I bring this next brother up, I just want to commend him because Isaac and Ishmael had found a way to get along. Believe it or not, they have found a way to get along. And ladies and gentlemen, this gentleman that we're going to bring up here represents an element of our community that has brought forth a sense of manhood, a sense of moral integrity, and it's powerful in the legacy of Malcolm X, in the legacy of the late Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the late Ward Dean Muhammad, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, a name that scares a lot of folk. But then again, some people need to be scared. Let's bring him on up, ladies and gentlemen, one and only student Minister Jeffery Muhammad of Mosque 48 in Dallas, Texas, also ladies and gentlemen. Jeffery Muhammad, we say, Assalamu alaikum, which means peace be on you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness there is no God but Allah. We thank Him for Moses and the Torah. We thank Him for Jesus and the Gospel. We thank Him for Muhammad and the Holy Quran. Peace be upon all of these worthy servants of God. I thank Him for raising the most honorable Elijah Muhammad and for blessing us with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, the man who is the example of a man, the kind of man that I would like to become one day. And so it's in their names that I greet you again in our original tongue, in the Arabic language, in the language of the prophets. Assalamu alaikum. That simply means peace be unto you. Miss Wallace told me I had 10 minutes. And so using modern technology, I typed it out so that I could be obedient. And so now I'm told I have 5. And so I'm going to give you the abbreviated version, but I want to just read a couple of things. I'm thankful to Allah for the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, who just turned 80 in May, but he is still on the battlefield fighting as a warrior and a soldier for freedom, justice, and equality. Every Saturday at 6 o'clock, Minister Farrakhan is on a 52-week lecture series entitled The Time and What Must Be Done, and I'm here with you tonight, and he is speaking, or he is finishing up with what he had to say. But I am honored to stand with Dr. Wallace and all of those who have been honored to fight in our community for the freedom, justice, and the equality that we still don't have, but that we must continue to fight for. When I was told I was being nominated for the Legend Award, I said, well, let me see what that is before I say that that's what I am. According to Webster, it says, a story coming from the past, especially one popularly regarded as historical, although not verifiable. I said, well, I don't know if I like that. Because when history can't be verified, that means that they left out aspects that could guide us, or people start making up things. So it says, a popular myth of recent origin. Well, I'm not in the myths. I like the real, unadulterated truth. And that's exactly what we need. Jesus said, the truth, you shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free. So Dr. King is becoming somewhat of a legend because his entire story is not being told. Our children are only taught that he had a dream in 1963, but not that he woke up and began to address the American dream that has been based on a black man's nightmare. They are not taught about Dr. King, who before his death in 1967 gave a report to the SCLC in which he addressed the connection between unemployment and crime, mostly committed in what he called protected sanctuaries in slums that were tolerated, if not connived, by police. Now, don't become afraid. Dr. King said a profound judgment of today's riots was expressed by Victor Hugo a century ago. He, Victor Hugo, said, if a soul is left in the darkness, sins will be committed. The guilty one is not he who commits the sin, but he who causes the darkness. He said the policymakers of the white society have caused the darkness. They create discrimination. They structure slums. and they perpetuate unemployment, ignorance, and poverty. It is incontestable and deplorable that Negroes, that's what he called us then, but we'll say blacks, have committed crimes, but they are derivative crimes. They are born of the greater crimes of the white society. This is Dr. King. This is not Malcolm X. He quoted 15% unemployment among blacks and 30 to 40% among black youth. So it is not acceptable today for us to use Dr. King and to say how proud he would be when the very thing that he quoted back then, the numbers are very similar right now. So in truth, how much gain have we made for the majority of our people, not just for a few privileged, some that may sit in this room? See, we have to continue to fight and not be afraid to struggle. You might not like everything I have to say, but that's all right. See, we never get to know the Dr. King, who became a real threat to this bastion of white supremacy called America. So I'm not a legend, but if I were a legend, my story would go something like this. Long ago, in a land far away called Africa, they shackled some people. And they began to escort them from the center of Africa or from wherever they found them to the west coast of Africa, where they were stored in slave dungeons. Many died on the way to the slave dungeons, and many died in the slave dungeons waiting on the ships to come and take them across the Atlantic. Many died in the Middle Passage on the way and were dumped overboard into the Atlantic Ocean. But those who made it to the shores of America were to engage for the next over 450 years in the most horrible and brutal form of slavery ever experienced in the history of man and mankind. For over 300 years, from 1555, not 1619, the first slave ships were brought here in 1555, to 1865, the black man in America was shaped, molded, and fashioned in a fiery furnace of affliction like the Hebrew boys, Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego. But in the 4th century of their suffering, though not complete, the flames were cooled, and the 4th person seen in the oven, the Son of Man, walked off the pages of prophecy and came to America from the east, as Jesus prophesied he would come from the east to the west in the 24th chapter of Matthew. He found a modern day Moses for us and taught him for 40 months, and then he left. And then the most honorable Elijah Muhammad stood up and began reforming the worst of those that had been destroyed. He built mosques and schools all over America. He rented ships from Turkey, and the Nation of Islam became the #1 importers of fish, not just among black people, but anybody. He built mosques and schools. He and his teachers went to prison in the 30s when it was illegal for our children not to be in the public school system, paving the foundation for others who would have charter schools and private schools later. We owe a debt of gratitude to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He's a real, true legend. He set up canning factories and farms and factories and slaughterhouses and meat packing facilities. His followers opened up businesses all over America. And he departed in 1975, and the Nation of Islam was destroyed with all other black organizations as a result of COINTELPRO, or the counterintelligence program of the United States government. He didn't want to integrate. I'm almost finished. This is the abbreviated version. He said God wanted us, as he told Moses, to separate so that he could make a great nation out of us. He never asked for jobs, he created jobs. He didn't ask for justice, but he said that the God of justice would soon visit America like he visited Egypt with Hurricane Katrina's, with Superstorm Sandy's, with floods, fire, snow, drought, pestilence, and soon famine. At the end of the 400 years of prophesied slavery, that's found in Genesis, the 15th chapter, the 13th verse, In 1955, his greatest student, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, joined the Nation of Islam. The legend of Elijah Muhammad was purposely being written out of history when Farrakhan stood up like a modern-day Aaron, 96. In the absence of Moses, to rebuild the work, and now we have over 160 mosques and study groups throughout America and the world, including London, where Minister Farrakhan is banned from and has never been. We still have 4 mosques in London because of the power of the word and the truth that he's speaking. He called for the Million Man March, and the greatest event in recent history, where nearly 2 million black men gathered in the greatest show of love, peace, and unity. But again, like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, you can hardly find one paragraph in the history books that's being taught. See, this is why legends are born, because people don't write history properly, and this is why we have to write our own history. So, in closing, the last definition of legend that I read in Webster says, it is an explanatory list of symbols on a map or a chart. And so I would say that the map is the Bible, the Holy Quran, all sacred texts from God. Farrakhan is the legend or key who is offering an exegesis, explanation, or interpretation of that scripture that is relevant to this modern time. There's no use in looking back 2,000 years to Jesus or 4,000 years to Moses if we can't make it relevant to our struggle today. And God's solution has never been to integrate a people into those that oppress them. And so our coming to real freedom is not going to be based on anything that we gain or get from white people. And we cannot continue to say that they're doing this to us. No, we have a powerful God with us. Minister Farrakhan said freedom is gained through self-development. A child comes forth into freedom from its mother's womb by growing beyond the mother's womb capacity to hold the child. We will get freedom not because white people give it to us. We will get freedom when we realize that we've tried everything, including their education, their religion, their politics, but the only thing that we have not tried is coming into greater unity so that we can develop ourselves beyond their ability to hold us. White supremacy cannot exist. I don't teach for applause. I need you to hear what I'm saying.
Your time is up. Your time is up.
White supremacy cannot stand in the face of black excellence. So I thank you, Dr. Wallace. I love your strength. Even when others in the NAACP cower and won't stand for what is right. You say, well, where are you in this legend, Jeffery Muhammad? Well, I'm just Farrakhan's little helper here in Dallas to make sure that you know that Farrakhan is the man today that's standing to lead us to that freedom, justice, and equality. And if we would all just unite behind strong leadership that we have, that we could actually forge our own way to freedom. And so I'm just his little helper, and I want it to be said that Jeffery Muhammad stood for freedom, justice, and equality, that nobody, white or black, has a check with my name on it downtown, that like Farrakhan, I am not for sale, can't be bought, my knees won't buckle, my back won't bend, and I'll always stand for what is right. May Allah bless you all. Thank you so much for honoring me and for your patience with what we had to say today. God bless you. Assalamu alaikum.